The most powerful force in the universe. It's love and compassion. So, what if we could take love and compassion for our fellow neighbors and fuel our motivation to lose weight?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to our podcast, The Zero Hunger Project. And today I'm really excited to talk about a guest that we have all the way from Texas, but I'm not going to talk about it before you, Stacia.
Okay.
This is Suman, your host,
I'm Stacia.
and I'm going to pass you off to introduce our guest.
Fantastic. I'm very happy to introduce our guest today. Today's guest is someone who has redefined what it means to serve both personal health and public good. Bill Jollie is the founder and board member of Interrupt Hunger, a nonprofit organization with a unique mission to prevent chronic disease, feed the hungry, and foster community. After surviving chronic lymphocytic leukemia, that's a mouthful, Bill took his own recovery journey as a call to action, not just for his own wellness, but to help others transform their lives and give back. Within 16 months of finishing chemo, he completed an Olympic distance triathlon and lost over 25 pounds. However, instead of stopping there, he created Interrupt Hunger, where that same personal transformation became a framework to tackle food insecurity head on. One of the organization's signature programs, Donate Your Weight, invites participants to lose weight and donate $1 for every pound lost, with funds going directly to food pantries. It's a model that connects individual effort to collective nourishment, blending wellness, purpose, and community action in a refreshingly human way. But I know you also want to talk about some other programs that involve mutual care and community capacity building, so I look forward to hearing about that. In 2024, Bill also launched the Move, Eat, Give podcast, featuring inspiring voices from the wellness, medical, and social justice worlds, reinforcing his belief that hunger is not just about food, it's about systems, stories, and shared responsibility. Through his work, Bill asks us to consider what if solving hunger started with taking care of ourselves and then extending that same care outward. Welcome, Jollie. We're really happy to have you here all the way from Texas Hill Country.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I've been looking forward to joining y'all. Thanks for inviting me. This is fun.
That's awesome. So you wanted to read out.
Yeah, just real quick, I do have a quick disclosure statement. So I want to let everyone know I am an employee of AbbVie. It's my day job, but I'm here today on my own accord and not in my professional capacity as an AbbVie employee. So all viewpoints provided here are my personal opinions and not intended to reflect those of my employer. So with that, let's get to it.
Thank you so much. So, Bill, I've got too many questions. I think we're going to be here 4 or 5 hours, but the first one, I'm going to jump right onto it. So you've built Interrupt Hunger around your own recovery journey. How did your personal experience with illness shape your understanding of hunger and community health?
Yeah, sure. That's a great place to start. So I'll say all the way. I'm 53 now, and I go by Jolly, by the way.
53-year-olds.
Hey, there we go.
You both look 43, so
Thank
let's
you very
move
much.
on.
Sure thing. So I've always struggled with my weight. I was the heaviest kid in 6th grade. Got picked on and all kind of things that associated with that. Until I decided to join the Marine Corps Reserves. And as you might expect, after 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserves, I was in amazing shape. And I got out in 1997, and unfortunately, I did what a lot of veterans do. They get lazy and they start eating as much as they can. So I put on a lot of weight, and I wasn't feeling very well. So over the course of 15 years, I will fast forward to 2011, and a buddy, Coy, and a triathlon saved my life. So quite literally. So spring of 2011, Coy invites me to train over the summer with my first triathlon, which is a sprint triathlon. It's a baby triathlon.
Is there such a thing as a baby triathlon? I mean, is that even a thing?
There's a huge spectrum of the word triathlon. So for those not familiar, you swim, you bike, you run, and it's just a smaller distance to very long distances. As we're training through the summer, I know something's not right. Like I would swim 5 laps in the pool. I'd be so tired, I'd have to hold on to the side of the pool to catch my breath. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm out of shape, but I shouldn't be this tired. And then as things progress, our training intensified. I developed something that felt like chest congestion, although going to the doctor, my lungs were clear. He gives me albuterol inhaler, says, don't worry, it's probably exercise-induced asthma, adult onset asthma, something like that. But just a few weeks later, that's all getting worse. And then we're doing a training brick. So Coy and I are in the pool, immediately get out into a run. And a mile into my run, I'm wheezing so bad, it literally sounded like I swallowed a whistle. I get home, I call the doc, something's going on. I'm going to come in tomorrow. One thing leads to another. He orders a CT scan, and I've got swollen lymph nodes everywhere in my body. And the largest one was right in the middle of my chest. So lymph nodes are supposed to be less than a centimeter. This booger was 4.5 centimeters, pressing against my airway, causing a wheeze. And that's how I got diagnosed with something called CLL, or chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So that's that we asked my first oncologist, the obligatory, my wife Tracy and I, we've been married 31 years, but at the time, Kelsey and Katie were 11. Let's see here, around 12 and 10. Inslee wasn't here yet. Today, fast forward, they're 27, 20, and 7. The little one's adopted. But the first oncologist told Tracy and I only had 10 years to live. So let that soak in for a minute. I've got two beautiful girls, 10 and 14 at the time. Tracy and I go out to the truck. We just bawl. And I quickly get a new oncologist. And he said, hey, don't worry. I got you. I'm up at Duke for a second opinion, some of the best oncologists in the world. And we go ahead and start traditional chemotherapy. There wasn't precision medicine yet. I tell people it was like, if you think back to college and the worst hangover you had in your life, well, you had the flu at the same time. But so I'm sitting in that very first infusion chair, 6 cycles, once a month, every 4 weeks. And I'm just really, really down on myself. I'm thinking to myself, like, why did I do this to myself? Like, why didn't I take better care of myself? I've got my beautiful wife, my beautiful girls. I let them down. And then all of a sudden it hit me, like, it wasn't just me. Like, I actually knew quite a few people, family and friends, who had some type of major health scare. And then that motivated them to change their life. A stroke, a heart attack, that close call, that second chance of life, it really changes your perspective on things. And so I was determined to do everything I could to be here as long as I could for Tracy and the girls. And sitting in that fusion chair, it's 6-7 hours. It's a long time. And you're literally watching poison drip into your veins, drip by drip. Not to be completely over dramatic, but it's pretty dramatic. And so I started thinking, I'm like, there's got to be something besides fear to drive us to motivate us to start taking better care of ourselves. And the answer hit me. I don't know if it's a God thing or what, but I'm like, the most powerful force in the universe. It's so clear. It's love. It's love and compassion. So what if we could take love and compassion for our fellow neighbors and fuel our motivation to lose weight? And the big stat that I started with were opposing statistics. 73% of Americans have overweight or obesity, but at the same time, at least 12% struggle with food insecurity. Both struggle with hunger, just in completely different ways. And that was the spark for Interrupt Hunger. I will say, in the beginning, it was just about weight loss and doing everything I could to stay alive. That's morphed into just really this new field of medicine called lifestyle medicine. I'm not certified, but I fully believe it. My podcast is full with lifestyle medicine providers. And just trying to make it easy for people to live healthier lifestyles.
That's an incredible story. And I will say, my father died at 54 from liver cancer. And he played, which is a year older than I am. And you are, actually. And he played squash 3 times a week and was very fit, but was overweight for a portion of his life before he got fit and then ultimately got sick. And it's incredible, the correlation between weight and physiology and circumstance and community and, all of these things that play a part. It's interesting for you to say, I'm surprised that I did this to myself. because I'm not a doctor, but I also believe that it's interesting that a disease so insidious as cancer is something that you would take on as your own responsibility. I mean, how much of that do you think you were actually culpable for, and how much of it was circumstantial, situational, hereditary, environmental?
There's a big answer to that. What I have, and actually this will hold that thought for just a second. Our very first program was the donate your weight, just trying to connect those two. Donate $1 for every pound you lose to help fight hunger, and we've started making a dent, not nearly big enough, but that quickly morphed into this other, just really whole health lifestyle medicine part of it. And what I have learned, I've read through hundreds and hundreds of clinical studies and podcasts just for the last 13 years, and meeting some incredible, quite literally some of the best healthcare providers in the world in their respective fields. So we've got this new campaign we're going to be rolling out really soon, and it's called Sick Fat. It's called Inflammation, Not Willpower. Stop fighting the wrong enemy. And so I want to make clear that this is not an attack on folks with overweight or obesity at all in any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I will say our podcast, Movie Give, my very first guest was a past president of the Obesity Action Coalition, talking about obesity bias and stigma. This is not what that's about. This is to try to help make the connection. Something called sick fat. The term was coined by Dr. Bays, who's president of the Obesity Medicine Association. So the actual term is adiposopathy. Adiposopathy. Sorry. What happens is So adipose tissue, fat tissue, it gets so enlarged that fatty acids start spilling out and accumulating inflammatory molecules. And that just spreads. The unhealthier you are and the more sedentary you are, unfortunately. And so that inflammation spreads to every single organ. It spreads to your brain. It's different diseases, but it's all the same process. Poor nutrition, sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, lack of community. It just spills over into every part of our body. So what we now know is this inflammation, it's all linked to close to 50% of cancers. We've got heart disease and diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, sleep apnea, back pain, joint pain, you name it. If there's a chronic disease, this process is contributing greatly to it. So no, back then, that was just kind of my self-wallowing in pity. Just because you have overweight, or just because you're sedentary or eating, doesn't mean you're going to get cancer, obviously. But you do increase the risk factors, certainly.
No, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a very personal story. And I think many listening to this podcast will get some learning from there. So I'm very curious about your connection and getting the community up and running in your journey. And it is not that easy.
Yeah, so that's the second big area of focus. So I'd started the Movie Give podcast a year and a half ago, and I was meeting incredible people literally all over the world. A PhD in Toronto to an urban gardener in Tokyo, Japan, and just doing amazing things in these little pockets of community health all around the world. And I had this idea of, like, what if we brought all these community health initiatives back to Bernie and try to make Bernie the healthiest small town in Texas. And so our youngest daughter, and she's going into second grade, at the beginning of school last year, beginning of first grade, went to leadership at the independent school district here and got approved to do monthly family fitness nights. And so it's basically PE, physical education, PE for families. Once a month, everybody comes together after school from 6 to 7, and it's free. And it really is PE for families. So whatever your kid's doing in physical education that day, you're probably doing that night. But you get the parents involved, the principal, the teachers. You get to meet your neighbors, and it's just a wonderful way to be active and build community. And so once that started happening and building momentum, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is really fun and pretty easy. Like, what if we really blow this up and try to activate the entire town? And so another thing that we're working on is so high school seniors, they need something called practicum hours if they're in a career and technology education program. Okay, I figured all over the place. Yeah, yeah, sure, exactly. And so in the smaller town, they're really hard to get good quality practicum hours they need. And I said, so every step of the way, I'm trying to think of like what are our current resources. Let's not ask people to come up with a bunch of extra money. Let's work with what we have. So no matter how affluent the neighborhood or not, you could still do these programs. And so having that in mind, we already have these resources. What if we can take this, and these are all high school seniors, by the way, 12th grade. What if we take our culinary students and teach their peers healthy cooking techniques? What if we take the architect program seniors and get them to design and build a really big school garden? And then what if we take the agricultural seniors, under the guidance of the educators, of course, take the ag students and teach their peers how to garden? Like, what if eventually the vision is every single high school senior graduates knowing how to cook, knowing how to grow their own food? If we do this, we can change the course of chronic disease epidemic and obesity and have been plaguing every single country around the world.
To that point, you're operating sort of at the intersection, the confluence of healthcare, food systems, and philanthropy. So you're trying to merge all of these different trajectories together. What are some of the systemic, institutional, governmental, whichever barrier you want to name, that you run into when trying to scale up this kind of work? Like, how do you elevate this out of your town and make it larger? What are you running into?
Yeah, so I've found that the trick, this sounds weird, but I found the key tipping point is you've got to get enough people angry, and not angry, just angry to do something, angry enough to actually give a darn about it and go do something, right? Because politicians, they want easy, they want status quo. It takes a lot to move the needle in a small town or big town, state, province, whatever. You've got to activate the community to get anything passed. And then you start taking out I'll back up. Don't try this on your own, wherever you are, whatever you're trying to do. There's already people in your community, no matter how big or small, that are doing incredible things. They just might not know about other nonprofits or other people that are passionate or not. So just put yourself out there, start reaching out, start attending meetings, start mixers by the Chamber of Commerce or local food pantry, whatever it is. Put yourself out there, start meeting people, tell them what your passion is, and your passion will fuel the relationships and the networks. And then you start talking you get invited to the school board, and you're like, okay, this is the problem. And then you get invited to, your town council. Because the very first time I talked to a city manager some time ago about health and food access and all this incredible things that we're all passionate about here. And they basically said, that's not our job. We're responsible for fire and police department and safety and roads and garbage, health, food access. That's not really.
Whose thing did they think it was exactly? Did they happen to name who the person was who would be responsible for that?
That's the question that everybody around the globe faces, right? That's somebody else's problem. That's somebody that's got a big heart that works at a church or synagogue or a PhD at some academic center. That's not. I can't do anything because the problem is way too big.
We say that hunger is political.
It absolutely is. We all know that. Hunger is a policy issue,
especially in the global north countries.
So, yep, and in the south too. Yep, all over. Yep, of course.
So I'm going to ask you this because you've launched the podcast Move, Eat, Give, right? And to elevate those conversations even further. Now, what voices or stories have moved you the most? And what do you hope listeners walk away with from your podcast?
So I started Move, Eat, Give to meet people doing incredible things. And this has been one of the neatest things I have ever done because I get to meet cool people like y'all, and our good friend Stephen Ritz, who connected us over at the Green Bronx Machine, doing I don't know. He's taught over a quarter million students how to grow vegetables hydroponically. I mean, it's fantastic getting to meet people like that. Um, I will say, folks that are passionate. We had a dietitian on recently in outside the town of Austin, Texas, that is just passionate about health and passionate about students and doing great things. I've met a another person, Clancy Harrison, with the food dignity movement. Who the thing I learned from her, and it was funny. I every single time I talk to her, every single story she tells, she stops and instead of putting her reality on the person she's talking to fix the problem, she's like, I don't know what I don't know. Like you're the expert here. Like, what do you think we need? And so she's created this beautiful system of not just asking farmers for donations to give to other nonprofits, but she wants to help farmers like grow and thrive. And if you're not growing and thriving, then we're not going to be able to help as many people. So let's change the narrative. Instead of just talking charity, let's talk about business development and economic growth. But just asking folks, don't come in with a preconceived notion. Figure out what they need and humble yourself. And it's just all these little stories that they just add up. And every piece of this puzzle is just becoming more and more clear, like what we need to do. And I'll say, in this virtual agricultural book club, which is it's just funny. I'm the only non-farmer, non-gardener in this book club, and I've learned so much from them. And we recently read, it's on the bookshelf. Let's see here, real quick. It's called Breeding Sweetgrass, right? Braiding Sweetgrass. I'm sorry, and it was the perspective of a PhD who is Native American, Indigenous, but she also has a PhD, and so she understands chemistry and biology, and she's taken both of these and meld them so close together. It's not one or the other. It's not traditional and it's not new medicine, new science. It's both of these, and both are right in understanding that everything is connected. Just like Albert Einstein said, it's all relative. We are all connected. And if you look at a forest, if you look at a desert, no matter how big the vegetation is, no matter how big the animals are, every single piece in that ecosystem is connected. And it hit me one day, like, hey, you know what? Like, we're in that ecosystem. Like, we affect things, and those ecosystems affect us as well. And you could look at that as a microcosm of your own personal network, your own community. And so I have this really, I don't know, kind of the heart of everything we do. This saying is, we need to do a better job of taking care of ourselves and a better job of taking care of each other. And those are not mutually exclusive. Those both come together. And once you fully like appreciate that, you can just kind of let yourself loose, and you're free to do whatever you want to do and help whoever needs helping.
It is exciting, and I think this notion of mutual care has been a theme that's come up in a lot of our interviews. Yes. It's been the fundamental tenet of a lot of programs where they're trying to move the needle when it comes to dignity and hunger and sovereignty and autonomy. Time and time again, those huge ideas are all couched in the notion of mutual care and making sure that if you're looking after yourself, you're also looking after other people. And so it's interesting to see that thread pulled through your storyline as well.
Yeah, thanks. It's so clear. It's so simple now to see. One of the programs we're working on in Bernie is to create workshops, both cooking and gardening workshops for the schools, for businesses, for places of worship, and think like employee gardens, raised bed gardens. And so a garden's a magical thing. Because it brings people together, and you're in community. It's like a forced community. So depending on how large the business is or church or whatever, you're going to have people in different departments. You might have somebody that's low on the, low on the ranking, and with a COO or CEO or whatever. So you get to talk to people that you don't normally talk to. So you're building culture. You're learning how to garden. You could take those skills home. We do the same for cooking as well. The other thing that we get to do with Interrupt Hunger is you can partner with groups like ampleharvest.org, who takes these backyard gardeners and community gardeners online and makes it really easy to find out where a food pantry is close to you, and then you donate a portion of your harvest. Anybody that's raised a garden absolutely hates throwing away produce, because you can only eat so much, you give away so much, you still have a lot left over. Like back in there's a thread here, but back in World War II, by the end of World War II, the U.S. and I'm pretty sure Canada and a few other countries had some
Victory Gardens.
Victory Gardens, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So in the U.S., 40% of all produce was grown in backyard gardens or community gardens, and so these huge commercial farms could send, the produce overseas for the war effort. And so on the face value, you see this is like, oh my gosh, this is a great way to feed Americans. The other thing that the plan was that the U.S. government didn't promote was it took it took all of our minds off the war and let us just focus on community and taking care of ourselves and each other. And we still see that with community gardens, backyard gardens, employee gardens today. So like I said, every step of the way, we're trying to figure out how we can help activate people, because everybody you meet, they all have a heart. They all want to help somebody. Like I said, love, it's the most powerful force in the universe. Let's just make it easy for them let's show them how, because just like, it's funny. So volunteering and exercising are very, very similar problems. So everybody knows you need to be exercising, but in a busy life, if you have little kids or a demanding job, it is really, really hard to find time to fit that in if you're not already someone who exercises. Volunteering is the exact same problem. Everybody wants to volunteer. Everybody knows they should be volunteering. Volunteering makes you feel good. It's just really, really hard to line up your passion with time and with the right cause. And so, you know what? Whether it's our big 4 pillars that we try to tackle is teach people to cook, teach them to garden, make exercising fun, and build community. We can do that at elementary schools. We can do that at high schools, businesses, entire towns. But let's make it fun. Let's make it easy. Let's bring these healthy habits that everybody knows we should be doing. Let's bring it to the places where people are spending most of their time.
It's interesting. Couple of things. So first of all, in Toronto, there's a neighborhood called Cabbage Town, and it was named because they had victory gardens during the war. Yeah. And cabbages were the last things to be harvested because they are frost resistant, and so they would be like the front lawns in Toronto, because we have an alleyway system in the old part of Toronto, so most people had their victory gardens in the front lawns. And the cabbages were the last things to be harvested because they could stay in the ground the longest. And so they named an entire community Cabbage Town. It's a little sidebar, but it's very cool. And it also allows people, you were saying that it took their minds off the war, but it also allowed people to contribute with what they had, right? To sort of help the effort and chip in and be unified in something that seemed too big to tackle as an idea. They were doing something on their own that they could do to contribute to the war effort, which I think is really cool. And the other thing I wanted to say about what you're talking about is all of those things, those pillars are all equalizers, right? Gardening doesn't care if you're a CEO or if you're the person that brings the coffee. Sometimes the coffee person's going to be a better gardener than the CEO. Nobody cares. Like a garden doesn't care what you do for a living. It doesn't care any of that stuff. And neither does the gym, quite frankly. Like you could be the most important person in your organization and get your butt absolutely kicked around a gym. So like that, those are the kinds of things that are very democratic, which is what I like about these ideas that you're presenting, is in this idea of all of this being so political. To find these veins of democracy inside of them means that people sort of have their own autonomy and their own agency, and they're able to combine in a way that suits them and works for them. And I really dig what it is that you're doing. It is that time in in our conversations where I get to ask two questions. I ask the same two questions to every guest that we have. And the first question is, what are the questions that people aren't asking you? What is the stuff that you don't get to talk about when you do these interviews, that you get off the call and you're like, oh, once again, that didn't come up, or I wish I'd brought that, the stuff that you think about in the shower like 6 hours later that you wish you, can you think of anything?
Yeah, so I'm always trying to think of how do we touch that one person. I always think like one person at a time. Like, what's it gonna take to really push them over the tipping point? Because like there's countless people in the world right now working on these things, whether it be health or whether it be food access. But like we all know, again, it's there's enough food in the world to feed every single person right now. So what is it? And it's going to take a complete change in our societies, every place around the globe, to change our future. So there's this animated movie a few years ago called Wally, and there's this robot. I know. Having kids, I love this movie. But there's this robot, and it's basically the only thing that's left on Earth because we destroyed our planet, and everybody had to get on spaceships and leave. That is our future if we don't change course. And it's kind of funny, it's kind of silly, but it's like that's the thing that I'm always thinking of. Whether it's on a jog in the morning, in the shower, driving through the car, is like, what is the message that's going to transform people? And the thing that I have found, the answer that I've found so far is you just have to start. You just have to start. No matter what you're looking at. When I started before the podcast, I'm like, I can't do a podcast. Like, I don't know anything about it. Well, I had a friend that did it, and he encouraged me to do it. And I learned and I did it. And the first ones were horrible, and they're getting much better.
The Google helps people with stuff like that. You can look it up on the Google and it'll tell you how to do it.
Google helps a lot. I didn't know what I was doing when I started this monthly family fitness night, but we've got a movement going and people are reaching out to me. And I had it's the coolest thing is when somebody that you haven't talked to, somebody you don't know, is not a friend of a friend, somebody reaches out in a local school district 40 minutes away. It's like, oh my gosh, I love what y'all are doing in Bernie. Can you bring Interrupt Hunger to our school district? I'm like, absolutely. Yes, we can. You just got to start. Start right in your community. Start on your street. Start next door. Figure out where what you're passionate about most, and just do the smallest thing, and then talk to everybody you know about it. And it's amazing. You can repeat that over and over and over. And if we get enough people doing that, we'll change the world.
There's the answer to my second question, which is best case scenario for you. What does this look like? I think you just answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I started by saying there's three things that we're really focused on. They're really big things, but the Sick Fat public awareness campaign, linking, the healing tone to science and medicine. So people don't go too deep, so we lose people, but help them make the connection. And then we're working on the actual step-by-step. We're going to hold your hands. This is how you make healthiest small towns everywhere. And then the third one is we're going to try to build a living classroom where we can really elevate our platform. And we'll have regenerative farming. We'll teach hydroponics, teach people, mushroom farming. We'll have a few acres of rotating sheep and chickens. I want to be able to use this living classroom, for tours and educating the public, but then also teaching folks that are really struggling with food access, who are in poverty. Let's don't just give them a handout. Let's teach them. Let's give them the skills that they can dramatically change their lives. And by the way, they're going to bring their whole family along, and probably some of their neighbors too. So got some really big plans, big visions. They're kind of scary sometimes, but it's one step at a time, one program at a time, changing one life at a time.
Love that. Love that. Here for all of it.
Thanks so much, Bill, for your time. This was a very enlightening conversation. Very motivating.
Oh, wonderful! It's been so nice to meet y'all. I've listened to almost all of your episodes so far. Y'all are doing great. Your guests have been amazing, I've learned a ton from your guests and from y'all. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Bill.
Take
And
care,
you have
Jolly.
a great day.
Bye-bye.
Wow. What a conversation.
Yeah, Jolly's doing some cool stuff.
I'm really fascinated because this is exactly the motto we had when we started Feed Scarborough, literally on a backyard or loading dock, or whatever you call it. And that's exactly what where he started. He certainly had a motivation, his health being the big one. But wow. And there is so much to uncover here, but this is exactly what is going to move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been so interesting to talk to the sort of scope of guests that we've had on this podcast, because some people are doing things at the policy level, high end, sort of meta governmental stuff. And then there's all of these grassroots initiatives like what Jollie's doing in the Texas Hill Country in a small town.
Yeah.
And all of them have the same ripple at the end of the day, right? It's trying to equalize and democratize and assist and look after people. And the motivation is the same. The outputs are different.
100%. I think for me, what resonated really well is the word compassion and mutual care that kept on coming. And there is a role for the governments and the UN, the politics to play. There's no question about it. There is a role that campuses, universities, they have to play. But I think the mutual care and the compassion that are in the communities, that's a huge part of this conversation. And we cannot leave it out.
And that's ultimately the hope, is that people will want to do this because they want to look after each other and they want to care about each other and they want to build up their communities. But at the end of the day, even if for whatever reason you're dead inside and you don't care about other people, lifting everybody up in this way is also just going to help you. Like by supporting all these initiatives, it's going to make your life better. So even if you don't care about the greater good or about anybody else, your life is going to vastly improve with more access to healthcare and healthy food and, getting rid of food deserts and capacity building. You're going to benefit from all of those things.
100%. And as I say, and I've said it probably in a few episodes before, the difference between food care and healthcare, especially sitting in a country like Canada, where the government funds most of the healthcare expenses. Being proactive and focusing on food care over reactive and healthcare makes a huge difference, not only for our health, productivity, but also for our hard-earned tax dollars that we pay the government. Even if you just think from that perspective, that how much money the government would save if they actually invested in food care.
And it doesn't seem like that big of an expenditure. I mean, I'm not a statistician. I'm not an economist. I'm not a federal employee of any description, but I just feel like, wouldn't it be cheaper to teach communities how to garden and look after themselves than it is to have, as you say, reactive healthcare policies that are dealing with a whole bunch of things that could have been thwarted had we been a little bit more proactive on the jump?
Exactly, the chronic diseases. And what Bill talked about, let's go back to the Victory Garden piece, which is fascinating. We had it in Canada. We got away from it. But just imagine the work that the Victory Garden was doing, not only providing fresh food, but building that community.
And capacity,
Exactly. These are the things that I feel personally our politicians, our leaders should be focusing more on and understanding that this is what our community needs.
And I think it's what our community wants. I mean, I'm not very educated on what the bylaws are in Toronto in terms of gardening. I know I lived before I moved to the Ottawa area. I lived in the east end of Toronto, and there were a lot of people who grow vegetables and in their gardens. And I certainly know that there's an initiative. There are a couple of initiatives in Toronto. If you have fruit trees, and you can't
not
collect,
far from the trees,
right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, not far from the trees.
Such an incredible. I mean, it makes so much sense to have somebody come and harvest your fruit trees for you if you're not going to be able to make your way through all of that food on your own. To have somebody come and take it and spread it around. I mean, that is a genius idea that probably came to
100%.
somebody in the bathtub one night, and now look at what's happening. I feel like there are all of these interesting initiatives, and to allow people to garden in their own gardens, because we're wasting water by watering lawns. Lawns are a pain in the butt. There you
And
can't.
even for the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's what I
Even
mean.
for
Like,
the ecosystem, not
they're
only just food.
expensive.
Yeah.
They're enraging also, because our lawn is completely covered in weeds and it's green, so we don't care. But like,
Exactly.
I couldn't be bothered.
Exactly.
I would much rather learn how to grow food. So maybe that's your next initiative, Suman, in your spare time.
Yeah, I know.
In your spare time is to launch victory gardens.
But I
Like,
want
let's
to tell
go.
you this is something I saw yesterday. I was just looking out my window,
Mm-hmm.
and this little kid, he would be probably 5-6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
was walking by with a basketball in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped in front of my house,
Mm-hmm.
and he picked up that dandelion, those seeds,
Yeah, and he
and
blew it.
just blew it, and just blowing just that piece. And we all say, oh, we don't want dandelion, we don't want weeds, but just that joy
I know.
in his face was
And
worth
also,
having those dandelions.
a weed is just a plant you don't want.
Exactly.
And dandelions have a lot of medicinal purposes.
Oh, 100%.
And also, the things keeping the bees alive. So please stop spraying Roundup on your lawn.
100%.
It's terrible.
I know. So there's two other things that I kind of took away from this conversation.
Mm.
I'm going to mention that before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
One of them was, don't try it on your own.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. And this is great for anybody who's got this idea or want to make a difference. Share your idea, talk to people,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what's going to get others who are thinking like you
Mm-hmm.
come and gravitate towards you, because together you're going to change this world,
Mm-hmm.
which was fantastic. And the other one that really stuck to me was, do the smallest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do that small little thing. You just have to start,
Mm-hmm.
and things will happen.
Well, particularly, this is something that I've been saying over and over again, talking about these problems. They seem humongous. And I studied sociology. I have an understanding of all this stuff on an academic level, but talking to these people who have been involved in this sector for as long as they have, I've learned so much about what I didn't know about what the problems were and what the struggles are. And it seems overwhelming. It gets a little daunting after a while, listening to like, well, we need to fix this before we can fix this. And then this is broken. And also that needs to be fixed. And then you just think to yourself, okay, well, forget it. I mean, like, this is an insurmountable problem. It turns out it's not an insurmountable problem, as all problems end up being something. If you hack them into smaller pieces, those little pieces can fit together to sort of exponentially become a solution at some point. And if we have a committed citizenry, in the vein of Margaret Mead,
Yep.
right? It's the
100%.
committed citizens who will change the world. And it's
Exactly.
only ever been the committed citizens who will change the world. So if you can find a way to plug into this and find other people who will meet you where you are, it doesn't even have to be huge or heroic.
No.
It's just, you have to put the time and the dedication. You have to get curious. You have to care about your neighbors. You have to care about the planet. You have to care about start by caring about your kids or caring about
Exactly, your
yourself.
family.
Like, whatever is your motivation. But if you just do one little tiny thing and then join up with another person, it's like mercury. If you push little balls of mercury together, they like sort of suck into each other.
100%. But I say this, COVID, of course, has brought a lot of negative, but it did bring a lot of positive.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about, especially in Canada, in very early COVID days, how the community rallied
Mm-hmm.
behind each other with mutual care,
Mm-hmm.
helping people any way they could.
Mm-hmm.
If we can continue that mentality,
Mm-hmm.
that will change the world. And it was really small. It wasn't massive. Look at our organization, Feed Scarborough. We never wanted this. We wanted to help our community just for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And look at us now, 5 years later,
Mm-hmm.
and literally making waves and changing people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was not the goal. The
Right.
goal was, let's just be there for our neighbors and our community.
Let's get through the crisis.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that, I think, and this is a crisis.
Yeah.
Food insecurity today is a crisis.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest pandemics that we have ever seen in our lifeline
Mm-hmm.
is the food insecurity. And this is the time, folks.
Yeah.
We need to rally behind each other,
Yeah.
be there for each other, and together we will have a hunger-free world.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Take care and see you next week.